We are live now at Mesoamerican Podcast. I'm joined by the Machtiani Cuauhtli. I consider him a mentor. Um, he's been a major help in my Nahuatl attempts, and I show a lot of gratitude for that, for him. But yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Cuauhtli, feel free.
Okay. ¿Qué más? Pues, nimotoka Chris Cuauhtli, wan niwala Tamazula, Jalisco, Onimoscalti, California, y wan Ashkan Chanti, Mexico. Um, so my name is Chris Cuauhtli, and I'm originally from Tamazula, Jalisco, but I was raised in California, and I live in Mexico again.
Mm.
Brief introduction.
Yeah. No worries. So I guess whatever you feel comfortable to share, I kind of would like to know how you began this prolonged Mesoamerican urge. I don't know, thirst. I don't know how to,
Yeah.
within yourself. What inspired it? What motivated you to take this journey that you have been in for quite a while?
Well, I think it was partially to wanting to know myself, know who I am, where I come from. But another factor is when you're growing up in the U.S., depending on where you grew up, you may face a lot of racism and discrimination, and sometimes that's like a driving force as well. So
Hmm.
in my case, I did experience that, and so that made me like want to know more about myself, want to know how to react to those type of situations that you find yourself in.
Hmm.
And um, I don't know, I just always been really into history and into truth, finding out the truth.
Yeah. And this happened in like around what year, time frame or whatnot?
So well, as far as the language,
No, just in general, like when you just started to kind of gradually get into this, or when did you decide like you're gonna be committed to well, as what I've known that you're restoring at least for now, what
mhm,
attempting to, and
mhm.
I think that shit's badass, Um like yeah, no little story about yourself if you like to share. It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, no, I understand. So as far as the language, because of where I grew up, probably around, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old, I started becoming conscious of like other languages besides, English and Spanish, like the basic languages. Because some of my friends, they're California Indians, so shout out to all the Pomos and Miwoks out there. And I would hear their relatives maybe say things in their language, or when we would go to events, I would hear the language, and it really created a curiosity in me. Like, well, what about my language? What about our languages, other languages?
Hmm.
So that's what kind of first sparked that.
That
And at
interest,
that
yeah.
same time, go ahead.
I said that interest.
That interest in like, well, what about our language? Because I'm speaking English, I'm speaking Spanish, maybe a little bit, and those obviously those come from Europe. So what
Hmm.
about our languages? So it was like a question. For one, why don't we speak our language? Those of us that grew up not speaking that indigenous language, and why, and then what can you do about it?
Hmm.
So that why, the answer is colonialism, right? Colonization.
Yeah.
And for some of us, that creates a reaction. Like, well, if they did to us, well, I have to fight. I have to fight
Hmm.
back through my education, or some people that call it now they use the term decolonizing.
Yeah.
But back then, we didn't have that term yet.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I've noticed that there's been a lot of terms being thrown out a lot of times in recent years. Like European American, decolonization, colonizer, all these like terms. Obviously against those that obviously conquered us, like if you want to say, or definitely changed the algorithm of Mesoamerica and the Americas in general.
yeah. There's a lot of it's evolving. Because I remember when I first started, like when I was growing up as a teenager, and just identifying as indigenous person and do it there nobody other than like nobody else like as far as Mexicanos were like really pushing that like
Yeah.
that. Now we have that that reconnecting a lot. You didn't hear that. And if I would say, oh, I'm what they ask you what you are, and I would say I'm Nawa, they would say, what is that? But now everybody's Nawa, so it's like
Yeah, I noticed there's most definitely been a crazy identity crisis within the Mexican quote unquote the Mexican community. You know, a lot of people. I don't know. I see what you mean. There's been a lot more interest now, more than ever than most definitely when I was growing up as well. I am younger than you, but
mhm.
I could relate a little bit of your story when you were saying that like the racism that you were feeling and you started like questioning like who am I? I started to feel the same as well. I think it happened a little bit towards my late teens as well when I started to have that interest, to my
Yeah.
Mesoamerican heritage and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Though at the time I didn't call it Mesoamerican, like, but I definitely knew that I was not of the same, cloth as every other Mexicano and stuff like that. Just on account that it's a diverse country. But
Right.
but around what time frame did you start to really dedicate yourself with Nahuatl? Did you start with classical? What variant did you start with, or what got
Right.
you?
So I first started kind of dabbling in it, trying to learn when I was around 16, 17. And I would say for sure, by the time I was 18, I was like really like trying to learn.
Mhm.
Now, this was pre, internet and all these things. So we didn't have those resources. There was internet, I think, but it was like, not like it is now where you could just,
Yeah, yeah, it was. I think it was more easily accessible after like early 2000s or late 90s. But
right. You had to go
even
to
then,
like to
it
the
was the
library.
dial up and all that
Yeah.
shit.
It was not accessible, especially if you come from like the inner city areas. So yeah, I started learning. That's when I first started learning, and of course, because of the resources, the only resources available were what they call classical Nahuatl.
Mhm.
Classical Nahuatl, or the variant that was spoken in the central Mexico by the Mexica and others within their vicinity.
Yeah.
So I started learning. I started learning from them, or from that variant, and then shortly thereafter, I started. I met a Nahuatl speaker from Puebla. She was really instrumental up there where I grew up, as far within the culture. She's really well known.
You
And
met this woman in California. Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt,
in
but
California, right?
okay.
All this was occurring in California at this time. Um, that's where I was raised. I was born in Mexico, but I was raised in California.
Hmm.
And she started like mentoring me, especially like pronouncing words, and just just every little thing that you would teach somebody. Because the
Yeah.
variant that she spoke from, and I can't remember the name of the community, it's very similar. It's to the central Nahuatl variant. Puebla has different variants,
Yeah, yeah,
and so I started learning from her, and I would say I started learning the majority primarily for myself, but I was meeting more and more people. At this time, there was like a large group of now speakers from Guerrero up there, and they started having classes and things like that. So I was like learning all these different um, from different sources, but I wasn't really learning my own
yeah,
variant because it wasn't really accessible at that time.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
the most variant that I see easily more accessible, and I'm pretty sure you would agree, it would be Huasteca variant of Nahuatl. Um, I never really saw anything else other than that, really, as well. But for me, I wasn't able to connect to that because obviously I'm not from the eastern parts of
Mhm.
Mexico. I'm from the northern part of Guerrero, and my region, though, like at least with my pueblo, they had Nahuatl in their Spanish, but a lot of the times they were rather they had a te, so like a te suffix, you know.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't like it would be a lot of words like that with rather than like chiquihuitl, there would be chiquihuite, you
Right.
know, instead of nanacatl, like nanaka na nakatete, you know, like so it was always like that. For, but unfortunately, my village had over assimilated, you know, to Mexico's way of living, have to learn how to speak Spanish primarily, then more so their language. But there is villages just literally just over the mountain that they speak uh, Nahuatl as well. A pueblo called Santa Cruz, which is 30 minutes away from us. Mayalalan,
Mhm.
they're kind of like ourselves as well. Where they speak a little bit of Nahuatl within their Spanish. And the reason why I bring this up is because since I was familiar with these words that like a variant of Nahuatl, sometimes I would be like sharing these words to my friends, and they would always be like, "What the fuck are you saying? What the hell? What is that?" You know.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends though were homies or whatever. They were from like Jalisco, Aguascalientes, and so yeah, they were just kind of like, you know, y pasote. That was another word too. Like I don't know. It was a different. It was a trip that That's when I started to realize that I was like, well, there's definitely something different going on with me, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, my pueblo is fortunately it has assimilated, but I hope that one day that I get to inspire them and encourage them to try to restore Nahuatl within our pueblo. But we'll see. That's just a deseo, you know. People may
Yeah.
and people may not take into that, you know. They're gonna for what you know that was in the past. You know, let it go. Let's just la vida sigue, stuff like
Mhm.
that. I mean, have you experienced something similar to that, or
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lack of interest, especially on this side of the border. I would say, there's less interest. You know, and like, I know some teachers from other places, like for example, Tlaxcala, and he puts his classes up for free or for very minimal whatever donation or charge, and just there's nobody shows up or nobody signs up.
yeah?
You know, it's just it's not valued in a lot of places.
Hmm.
You know, for different reasons.
Yeah,
But
it's for me. I don't consider myself a teacher or anything like that. I try to be an instructor, just to
uh,
kind of get people familiar with the Nahuatl. Um, I've I've had a lot of people with interest, but as soon as they get involved, they see the difficulties of the language, and it's overwhelming. I'm assuming to them that
yeah,
they automatically feel discouraged and just plain old give up.
yeah. I would say in the classes though that I've been doing, there's been some really good students and really good enthusiasm, but surprising, like sometimes people will like sign up and they'll even make their donation and then not show up. It's
Yeah, yeah. It's
like, all right,
yeah.
but
It's it has happened to me, and now I straight up tell them like, yo, this is not gonna be a easy path. It's not. It's you're gonna have to have straight up dedication to it. However much you want to contribute,
mhm.
put time into it, and be based on your schedule. It don't matter how fast you get to A to B, is as long as you get there. And yeah, I try to be motivating to them. So far, I only got like 6, 7, like dedicated students,
Yeah.
and one is I named him Iswat Leaf. He's
Mhm.
a real young guy, man. That
Yeah.
guy, man, that's le pega todo, bro. Like he's like a fucking little
Sponge.
sponge and shit. Yeah. You'll be like, what about this? Yeah, what about that? Like, And I'm like, damn, I mean, that's dope.
Yeah, we had a last class. We actually went to the intermediate level with that class, and there was a lot of the. I could say they were like that, getting it really good. But
Yeah.
it takes a lot of dedication, and 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 I guess people have to. For me, people have to look at language learning from a different perspective. You're not just learning a language; you're actually decolonizing. You're fighting colonialism, because that's the first one of the first things they take from us is our language. Why?
Mm,
And why are you not angry and upset that you don't know your language? Why does
yeah.
that not just anger you to the point of like I need to know my,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I know what you're speaking of, man. I get upset too when like I'll be telling my family members. Not all of my family members embrace their indigenous side. They're more
Hmm.
like, man, like it's. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, a lot of the attitude is more of like, pues ya pasó, and like now we're living in these times, and we're just, you know what I mean. And it's a sad image, at least for me. From being a third person view on this, it's sad and depressing. And in fact, within myself, I do get frustrated with the amount of history that I've learned, the graduate, whether it's a little bit or a lot. Like you, I definitely see the world in a different set of eyes than I originally did, and I'm assuming something like that may have occurred with you as well. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely, but for me, I always been that type of person. Like, if I saw something wrong, I would like maybe speak up against it or try to do something about it.
Hmm.
Um, Not saying that I didn't do a lot of wrong before I did too, but
Yeah, I
at
mean,
there was
it's
a point in time where I was like, it changed, and I was like, hold on. But so for me, that was the main thing. What was for me is you to learn your language. I think that's the key to everything. You can go to all the sweat lodges and dansas and all that, which is
mhm.
good too. But you're still going to be looking at all that. You're going to be interpreting all those things through European Western language
Westernized mindset.
and ideology. When you learn your language, which I'm sure you'll probably agree with, things start changing the way you
Hmm.
view the world.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
So we got a question here, Cuauhtli, by
yeah.
Olin Solano. The question is, how did the Nahuatlaca get to be so spread out and influential? Assuming in modern times. What's your thoughts on that? If you have anything to share?
I just think they spread out because of migrations, migrations and then probably wars too. But
Hmm.
people always been migrating across this continent. and it just
Trying to look for a
happened.
new life. Yeah.
They migrated, and they became influential. Because of I don't know exactly why they became so influential. We could say maybe because of war, maybe because of trade. You know, it became like a trade language, a
Yeah.
common language. So I think it's a complicated, but they spread out definitely because of migrations.
Yeah.
You know,
For me, I would like to think, and I think it's because over time, racism started to really develop within Mesoamerica, and some people weren't liking treatments of like living in Mexico City, possibly, and migrating outwards to other villages that they were already aware of, or whatnot, and it kept on going like that. I do agree with you as well with the trade and just simply looking for a better life. I think that's also a contribution into why the indigenous groups or Nawa indigenous groups spread out so much.
but are you saying like during the colonial times or
Yeah,
before?
colonial
Okay,
times, just like the whole progress of it, like, starting from colonial times to, I guess, for present day time.
right, yeah, yep, I agree. And people moved in different regions because for during wars too, and during the pre-colonial and the colonial, they would move populations. You know,
Hmm.
that
I
was
think what I always hear, at least from my people from my area, oh, cuando empezó la revolución, ahí se desmadró todo, la gente se fueron, and like there's too many kidnappings and a lot of abductions and shit like that. So people got also spread. Um, and it's the time of the revolution in Mexico, but obviously I wasn't born in that time frame, so I can't say like, oh, that is very true. But I do hear a lot of people say that in my region, pues.
yeah, no, it's true. During the revolution in Jalisco, they had a lot of wars before the revolution and after. So it was a constantly people
Conflict.
changing and
Hmm.
moving, you know, and so I think that it has a big piece of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to say to the crowd that's viewing, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll see what Cuauhtli or myself get to say on it. Since now, as you can see, being now as a trend on social media, how do you feel about that? If you care, if you like to share. If not, we can go to another question.
Well, it's kind of crazy because I see like on social media, especially like I'll see people and they're constantly like one week they're Nawa and then the next week there's something different. Like maybe a few months later, it's constantly changing, and then their stories. But part of that, I could say, okay, well, they're just growing and they're starting to actually like learn who they are. So I'm not trying to knock them for that, but I think at the very end, being Nawa is being part of a Nawa community, or at least being descended from a Nawa community, and
Mhm,
learning Nawa. I do want to say this though, because I see this a lot. Like learning Nawa doesn't make you Nawa,
mhm.
but Mexicanos they have that. In my opinion, I see a lot is they learn. They're like, I want to learn Nawa, and then they start like they're Nawa now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. I know you speaking. Like I've said this to my students. I was like, you may not be Nawa, but you can learn Nahuatl, and you would be a Nahuatl speaker, just like how you speak English. It doesn't make you a person of England or British or whatever. Just because you speak
Right.
Castellano, it doesn't make you a person of Spain or anything like that. You're just simply a Nahuatl speaker, So
Exactly. I agree. I think that's exactly. But
I don't know
that
if this
brings
is a
me to
question. Uh-huh.
another point that I would like to share because, for people that are looking for their identity, like searching for their roots, is I see a lot of people they do like they get a map from that list, the indigenous groups at the time of contact, and they're like, all right, this map says, for let's just say, for example, and I'm from Michoacan. This map says that the primary group here is Purepecha. I'm Purepecha, but you can't connect your genealogy by that, because you have to understand that the community that your grandparents came from may not have been from that group, or they may have been moved there, or
Mhm.
there's just so many factors. Um, the best way is to do your genealogy in addition to the map and the history, and then go
Yeah, yeah,
back.
yeah.
You know,
Rebuild like an image based on facts, I guess, I suppose, and
yeah,
based on your family history that you know that for certain is a fact. And yeah, and just that's I've told people things like that, but I'm telling you, it's kind of the same thing with the Nahuatl. Like people show interest, but as soon as they see the work that has to be done, they get discouraged, and
yeah.
then
The
just like, oh, it's
genealogy is
easy
a
for me
lot
to
of
just
work.
say that I'm yada yada, you know.
Yeah, it's and you know, there's towns that are inside of, you know, surrounded by other language groups that are of a different group, because they moved there before colonial times or after, or they were founded by, that town was founded by Spanish people and whoever else came, you
Yeah.
know. So
It seems like no, I don't know. It seems like people don't have a question to ask. I did see something I hear, but I'm not really sure what it meant. What they meant when they talk about dates of our history. Do you think it's even older than what they say?
well, it depends what time frame they're talking about, but what I noticed with Nawak, specifically with Nawak, is it's constantly changing. Like the dates are going farther back, and where they believe the language originates changing. Like now they're even most recent research I saw is they're even showing that there was Nawak speakers all the way in the Teotihuacan era time. Not saying that that was the primary language of that place, but
Yeah.
Nawak was there. So if Nawak was present in Teotihuacan, that means that the whole evolution of the language has to get pushed back.
Mm.
You know,
What is what? Now that you brought up Teotihuacan, um, do you have any theories of who might have been the original inhabitants, or because I'm not familiar if there have they made that such discovery, but since you've been doing this whole study, within your
yeah.
journey, what is your theories or no or that for certain or fact?
Well, I don't know anything for fact because I just reading a lot of different articles on it. But there's a theory I was reading last week, and they're saying that they probably believe that um, the original language of the original founders was probably something like Miche Soki, which is like kind of like a language that the Olmec spoke. They spoke a related language within that family group. But we know that within the central Mexico, that the first group that they know of were the Otomi. They were there before. You know, the Nahua.
Before, what do I mean? I don't know if I before the like the structure of Teotihuacan, or
Oh,
I
I
missed
don't
that.
know. I don't know if they were there like before or at that same time, but they were probably there. At that time. But a lot of these cities were multi-ethnic. So they've already determined that, like Teotihuacan had sections where there were Zapoteco people, and excuse me if I'm not using the correct terms for the indigenous groups, so just using the common ones, right? So everybody can
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
The more familiar
Zapoteco,
ones.
right, and then there was you know different groups
Yeah, I've heard
because
things
that's
like that too. That exactly what you just said. I heard that there were things like that occurring in Tenochtitlan, where there was like segments of different indigenous groups when they would trade in the tianguis and shit like that. Uh,
well even today. today, that's I was talking to a linguist at a convention that she works with the Mexicaneros from Durango, Nayarit, right? They speak
Hmm.
now right there still, but in their communities, they're multilingual. They speak Oalam, like Tepehuan, and Nawa, and Wirarica, and then they have like different factions and they're married in
Yeah,
together. It's just, we see that from the west, at least as far as like West Mexico in Jalisco, the first accounts always talk about when they entered the whatever town, there will be like one little, we'll say a barrio, right? Colonia,
yeah,
Nahuatl speakers, and then other, the primary language maybe, or the reverse. They were multi-ethnic.
yeah. I mean, I see that being a real thing, at least in modern times, like a lot more. I can see
Yeah.
that being a real high possibility. But now you got me thinking, since you were mentioning Jalisco, what inspired you or motivated you to attempt to or attempting to restore Jalisco Nahuatl? For me personally, I was surprised that you guys had the R, and but then it also made sense because of the Purepecha language having that type of characteristic within the language. So I guess my question would be, where did you begin? Like how would you in that path?
Well, I knew that the language is spoken there at some point in time, but it's been dormant language for since I've been alive. By dormant meaning that it's not spoken as an everyday language. Just people know phrases or words or maybe a little song, things like that. So I wanted to learn my variant because I was like, what's the point of me learning this variant? I have no historical connection to this variant.
Hmm.
It's good to learn any indigenous language you can, but I wanted to learn my variant, and it was hard
which is
because there
which
was
is valid.
nobody. Right, thank you. And there was nobody talking about it, nobody writing about it. For us, like in Jalisco, like the other people don't even know there's not people there. They're like, what? They just know about the Wiraricas, the Huichol people.
Hmm.
But in the South, the if you go to the pueblos, if you live there, then you probably know. But yeah, that's what started, and so I just started trying to gather all the information I could on the language.
So you
I'd
made it
already
your
spent
mission.
years, huh?
You made it your mission.
I made it my
Or
mission exactly because I
that
said
is
I
great, man. Like I told you earlier, I think that's amazing. And I know it's probably underappreciated, but I like I salute you on that aspect like crazy, bro. Just because you're trying. That's the beautiful part that you're trying and you haven't given up. And I hope that somebody continues your work in restoring Jalisco Nahuatl. Or, I think it's worth the lucha, the worth the struggle to try to bring that back within Jalisco region or the western region of Mexico. Um, but okay, so we got a question right here. It's a little bit more personal. Do you guys practice the do you guys practice the spiritual practices of the Mexica? It's a little bit personal. I don't know.
Well, what do you mean by that? I guess you have to define what are the spiritual practices of the Mexica, right? But I would say that for me, my opinion is people are always ask those type of questions, or they say that like there's a separation between the culture and the costumbre, right? Like
Mhm.
if you're in it, you're in it, and you just you practice it, right?
Yeah.
But some people look at it like a religion. So like they can do it like once a week. They can do their spiritual
Ritual.
practice, you know. But
Yeah.
it's a way of life.
Yeah. So now, what do you? Okay, so I'm assuming you've came across with a lot of information of like the Mexicas or Aztecs or whatnot, and I've also seen in social media that some people think that the Aztec word was invented by European people,
Hmm.
and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think you were one of the first people. Actually, you were the first person, if anything, that told me like, no, that's like a genuine term um that
Hmm.
predates colonialism.
Yeah,
Where do you
yeah. A
where
lot of. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, actually, you say what you were gonna say, and then because I was gonna ask a question right after. Oh, wait.
Well, it's because there's a lot of there's some white guy on you wherever on social media. He's like a professor or some he's saying it a lot. But
Hmm.
before that, people were just parodying that. Like one person said, and then this person repeats it
Yeah,
without even looking into it. But most definitely, it's a legitimate term, and it's in the sources, the Nahuatl language sources written by Nahuatl speakers within the first few
yeah.
years of the invasion. There's a hieroglyph for the symbol. Like, yeah, it's 100% legitimate term.
W- What is your theory where Aslan may be, if you would like to share?
Um, well, for sure, it's not in the U.S. Southwest, in my opinion. And the
Hmm.
reason I say that is because, from a language perspective, you can kind of track how a language evolves, right?
Yeah.
Over time. These linguists, they do that. But they pretty much determined that the evolution or birth of Nahuatl, the mother of Nahuatl, Proto Nahuatl, originated in Mexico, central Mexico, right?
Mhm.
West central Mexico. So what that implies is that there was never any Nahuatl speakers in the U.S. Southwest because the language hadn't even evolved yet.
Mm.
It's kind of like if we go back to like like let's say 1 BC, the year 1 BC, right? We can't say there were Spanish speakers in Spain because that the Spanish language had not even developed out of Latin yet.
Yeah.
Because Spanish comes
I
from
think they were
Latin.
in the vulgar stage or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
they
That's
were
what
like
they call
they
it.
were speaking Latin, some proto Latin. I don't know. I'm not an expert
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that. But my point is Latin. This is people understand this more. Latin is the mother language of Spanish, right? So
Hmm.
when did Spanish arise out of Latin? They're able to determine that, and they can tell you what little region it came from and all that. Same thing with Nahuatl. So
Yeah.
to me, it that's just like a more of a thing that happened within the Chicano movement, you know. But for a
Yeah.
long time, they've been saying it was in northwestern Mexico. That's what the
I,
historical accounts were saying.
what's that place? Nayarit. There's so I guess like
Yeah,
they think there was a Nayarit,
Mezcaltitlan or algo así.
something like that. Yeah.
It's a
Um.
little island.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows if that could be a possibility, but I don't know. I don't know for certain either. I would like to know where exact. Obviously where Aslan is. Aztlan is at. I have the costumbre to say Aslan, but
Yeah, well,
Aztlan.
that's how everybody says it. Slam.
Yeah.
But
Um.
yeah, I think to me, I think it's in that region because the language evidence,
Northwestern of Mexico.
the language evidence points there because that's where the linguists are pretty much saying it's the language evolved in that area. They say either the Bajío region is like where Jalisco, Querétaro, and Aguascalientes where they meet. that little region.
Mhm.
They say it's either there, and then some say it's the Nayarit, Jalisco, Durango, that little region right next to it.
Yeah, I've seen
So
this.
we'll make the circle a little bigger and include both.
I've seen this anthropologist from Mexico. I forgot
Yeah.
his name, but he literally traveled to these locations to show where Tenochtitlan, Aztlan, may possibly be.
Hmm.
He went to a location somewhere around Guanajuato and Michoacan,
Yeah.
and he found the seven caves there. Well, what he thinks is would be the seven caves, and he kind of convinced me that Aztlan is definitely in Mexico, but these are all speculations. But it's cool to know, you know what I mean? Like just to gather different people's perspective on at least on that tema.
I think too. There's a lot of people think that people believe that the Aztlan is in the U.S., but that's more like a U.S. thing. People like that study in Mexico, they don't have that belief.
Yeah.
You know, that there's nobody that I know of any like educated person that's saying it's in the Southwest.
Mhm.
You know,
What are your thoughts of the original, I guess, Aztecatl people? Do you think it's a possibility they might have not spoken a variant of Nahuatl, or like from their journey? You know what I mean, going down south. Because I sometimes believe like they. I was like, well, if they came from the north, that far up north, there's no there's no Nahuatl speaking people. So is there a possibility that might have been a different language that they were using while they were traveling? So they finally find their home, which is Central Mexico, and having to adopt um, Nahuatl as their primary language. You think that's a possibility?
I think so. But there is now what speakers in Nayarit and southern Durango.
Yeah.
You
But
know, so if we
this is like
see
obviously
what,
pre-colonial time, but it's just it's what sometimes one of my theories. You know, I can't prove it. It's just something that I try
well, there
to,
is the theory. I've heard it before.
or that they might have spoken they probably spoke Uro Aztecan language, but not Nahuatl. You know, within their migration.
Yeah, there
But
was
yeah,
theories that might have spoken another language. Even Otomi, they might have spoken. You know,
yeah. I see we got
well, it's
see if we got any
Ethiopian.
more questions. Okay, I see. Hey Chris, traced my tree to 1600s, Nochistlan, and and then from I can only hypothesize that my indigenous could be Kashkan or Texeque,
The question.
Tequeshe.
Yeah, Nochistlán. Yeah, that's Kashkan. Traditionally, it was Kashkan territory. Hmm. The
Not sure.
Kashkan.
That was
Kashkan.
more of a statement
Yeah.
rather than a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if anybody wants, let me see. I don't know if this is Chris. You can probably look into the history of that part of Durango.
What part?
Uh, Come on, Jets. Ask us some questions, please. You know, some of these
Yeah.
are like statements. Um, all right. So I want to say, um, sometimes when I know there's variance, and this is just I guess, my own theory or whatever. Like the reason why I continue my studies with classical
Uh huh.
is because it's probably like the closest glimpse to what once was spoken in the Centro Mexico.
Uh
And
huh.
I feel like historically, when Mexico was, I mean, when Nueva España was at existence, more than half of its population spoke an indigenous language.
Mm-hmm.
So over time, you know, Spanish became the primary language, and then when Mexico came about in existence, I think the language had reduced of the population. It still might have been like around half, and over time, since it didn't educate indigenous languages within the school systems, and even before then, you had to pay for education to go to school, and when you did, you would have to obviously learn Spanish or Castellano.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, or I'm at least aware of, that there's been tons of indigenous communities that have been neglected by the Mexican government and Nueva España in isolation in these small communities, rather than to, I guess, develop their own school of uh of their native indigenous language. For whatever reason, it never occurred. So I feel, since it was is it's still even to being a discouraged thing to do now. I think it has laxed a little bit, but I feel before then, people we were being obviously oppressed for speaking their native language in public spaces. So a lot of indigenous people were obviously discouraged. So I think the grandparents were like, "No, pues, why am I going to show the language to my child? He's just going to be discriminated." And what I believe over time, the proper way of speaking Nahuatl, you know, was kind of lost and then changed to what they thought was once said. Because I see sometimes uh like a redefined meaning to a word that I've come across in old literatures, and I'm like, what? This person says that is this, but it's the oldest literature that I could find says this. It's otherwise. And and I think it's the cause of why we have so many variants within Nahuatl. Well, what I don't know if you consider it a lot, but it's like around under 40, but between 30 and 40 variants of Nahuatl. And at least for me, I would like for there to be like a school system based on Nahuatl and how to speak proper Nahuatl, or try to establish that somehow in some shape or form,
Mm-hmm.
and so people won't come around. I'm gonna took a jab on the Azteca Nahuatl right now, but so we won't have people going around saying Piali, you know. When in my studies, I know it as a noun for to hold or whatnot. So we won't have things of that existence, I guess, within variants of Nahuatl.
Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts? I know, unfortunately, all variants, at least into my conocimiento, is that they're all corrupted. They're all corrupted by Spanish influences, um, regardless, you know, of the variant had developed or evolved or whatnot, but it has been corrupted, and it's
Yeah.
also a sad image to see. What are your thoughts on that, or what's your perspective? Since you've had a long dedication towards Nahuatl.
Well, I would say that I wouldn't say corrupted because every language that when they come in contact with another language over time, they evolve and they change, right? They influence each other. So if we look at Nahuatl, um, I got to think of a word right now. What if we look at classical Nahuatl, right? And there have been studies of this. They show that a lot of the words that they adopted come from Denic language. Denic
Mm.
is a language related to Mayan language in the Veracruz area.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So would that mean that that they were corrupted because they adopted these terms
Well,
from Denic? And then it's a lot of
I,
them.
yeah, I think for me, well, Denik is not foreign. You know,
Oh,
it's
you're talking about
still,
Spanish.
yeah, Denik is
Okay.
not foreign. So I understand that, the mixture of the language, but since Spanish, obviously, it's foreign, and that's why I feel that it was like intervene of the progress of the evolution of indigenous languages within Mesoamerica or just in the
Yeah.
Americas in general. Um, that's what I'm meant by corrupted because they were obviously Spanish is foreign.
Right.
I
No,
could see like
that's a different question then. Yeah.
yeah. All right. See if we have anything else. Is it okay? See, I think this might be a question. Is it true my Nahuatl dictionary has a lot of Spanish loan words in it? Yeah. To some extent, yeah.
All the variants have loan words and they have grammatical, and it was almost immediate. Almost immediate. For example, if you were go to into any, let's just say classical Nahuatl dictionary, you'll see words in there that almost immediately they changed in their meaning. For example, give you one example, the word to have, right? Pia.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
If you look in Molina's dictionary, because probably that's like the primary source, right? He'll have it in there to have, but the word really doesn't mean have. The meaning of that word was changed by Spanish influence. That word really means to guard something, right? To take care of something. So the influence. So even if we wanted to do that, which I don't see nothing wrong with that. You would have to be like really careful because the dictionaries that were written, the vocabularies, the grammars, they were written by under the influence of
Missionaries and foreigners,
missionaries.
pretty much.
So that sometimes that's why whenever you get a colonial dictionary, you have to look at the word and then you have to look at it how it's used in other in text. Like the Florentine Codex, you see how it's used to try to
Mhm.
get the better understanding of it, and then even see how modern variants use it, and then kind of figure it out if it's legit
Yeah, you
or if
get
it's
the essence of the word or
yeah,
the
or okay, this shit's been changed up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What I've noticed sometimes, I don't know if you have come across this, you probably have. For instance, like different style of writing words.
Mhm.
I've seen yolot, yolot, yolochtli. Um, I've seen obviously like well, I put the K, but it's Quiyya, and other times I don't see a Y between the I and the A. Like for instance, if I was to say temachtiani, you know how it has the I A and then before the knee. What are your thoughts of the Y being in between the I and the A when it's written? If I don't know, do you think it's valid? Do you think it was a mistake or?
It depends on the variant on the pronunciation. That's primary what it is because some variants they do say Kiawi and some say Kiawi and they're kind of like sound the same, but one has a Y, one doesn't.
Yeah, like Cuauhtli, you know, with that little W
Yeah,
sound in
Coat,
there.
Coat. Yeah, it might have sounds more like a, a
It's a
W
subtle
sound.
change, but there's you could hear it. You
Yeah,
can hear it if you really are attentive to 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 that pronunciation.
but
Um,
even in the in the pre-contact times there was variants. You know,
yeah, yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure, but I think I just my theory that I think at that time I don't think it was vast to what it is now, which is I
probably
don't
not
think there
as
was
bad. Yeah,
I don't think it
yeah.
was as much, but I know for certain there was variance, but it was just not where it's at now today. See, let me see. I don't know if this is a question. Is there is a Chris in the chat as well? Sorry, what the fuck? Come on, dude, like, give us a genuine question for
There's a Chris
Cuauhtli.
chat, but a lot of how different spellings depends on what region community you're from.
Uh-huh.
They use some use a K, and they're like debating that, and you know
Yeah. Like
they're trying to
modernize.
standardize it.
Yeah. I've seen that. I've come across with some people from Puebla that they were like surprised that I'm like studying classical, and they're like, "Why are you writing like that? You should be writing this way." Or people telling me things from different. The one that I've been attacked by the most has been quote unquote Huasteca speakers, and but that's my experience. I personally don't have an issue with Huasteca people that are actually from that origin or from that
Yeah,
region. I just have issues with, I guess, Mexican Americans that happen to learn that variant, and it's crazy. Uh, when you were studying Nahuatl, did you have uh would you I guess did you have any times where you were criticized? I know that you come from a different time frame when internet wasn't accessible or whatever. Where has there been a moment when you had experienced that, I guess?
like criticized for the way I'm speaking, or
Yeah.
yeah, because but not in the U.S. and here in Mexico by other Nahuatl speakers. Because I'm not saying everybody, but there's a tendency for people to think their way is the right way, right?
Yeah.
So certain,
I do
certain
have that tendency too. I
yeah,
see
certain
things on
variants.
the yeah, I seen things on social media. There's some now speakers that I follow, and then the way they spell shit or prefixes that I'm like, what the heck? Like you, but they redefine it, the meaning of it, and I'm like, yo, there's mati in there. How does that mean? Like, see you later. Like, and I don't know, but I definitely see things that is contrary to what I've been learning, and it's a trip. It just kind of goes back to like I said previously. I feel because there's no an actual like school system on how to speak Nahuatl. And I know because we have so many variants, people like how you said, um, tend to think that their variant is the proper or
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah, I see that a lot. Like I was seeing somebody, they were saying that I follow and I like his content and everything. He was like, in Nahuatl, this is how you pronounce certain words or something, but you can't really make that statement and say Nahuatl. You say because there's not one Nahuatl. You have to say
No,
what you're talking about.
yeah,
Because what's true in Veracruz is not going to be true in Colima.
yeah,
It
yeah,
may not.
yeah,
Maybe it will, but generally it's not.
yeah. What was I gonna say right now? I probably contributed on this shit in the beginning of my Nahuatl studies. I most definitely made a lot of errors, but I do have a great passion to try to do things correctly as much as I can. And what I've noticed too that sometimes I don't do it often, but I do every now and then try to correct people like, yo, uh, and a lot of times they're like, oh, this is how my I feel like they're hiding behind like, oh, this is the variant that is spoken, which makes it valid, and then I see it as incorrect.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, what the? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
you have come across things like that as well.
Yeah. I have, and I usually when I first started going online, I would probably comment more, and then it wasn't like a good experience that I like all that back and forth. I don't really got that in me to be doing all that. So
Yeah. Oh, it's tiring. Believe
yeah,
me.
it's tiring, and then it's just like at the end of the day. And the end of the day, I don't really care because you're not from where I'm from, and you're not, you know, speaking my language, so whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if somebody asks me, I'll try to shoot what I know,
yeah. Your
um,
opinion or
my
your,
opinion or
what you,
what I
yeah.
know. Yeah, but
So
yeah,
we got a question right here by Vicky's Town Chronicles. He's one of my students. He's OG triple OG. Like he's
oh,
veterano status. So like
I know.
I named him the Charlotte, and
Chalo,
his question is, His question is, how many variants slash languages does Cuauhtli speak?
Um, well, I speak English, obviously. I speak Spanish. Um, uh, as far as Nahuatl, um, I would say that I'm conversational in Jalisco Nahuatl, and I'm probably conversational in to a certain degree in Huasteca Nahuatl because I did study a variant of that for two years. It's not the same one that everybody's learning now online, but so I kind of have an understanding of it. Um, but I've been forgetting it, and I'm literate in classical Nahuatl. I would say for sure, I'm literate. It's very vast, as you know from your studies,
Mhm.
and they have the honorifics and then the regular way of talking, and then I'm just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. And then verb honorifics, and
yeah,
then it's just
it
the
gets really
placement of how like
complicated.
you go from in. I
Hmm.
mean, if I go in Tehuatzin, or whatever, it's for as I understand it as por ti, for you, as for you, because
Yeah,
of you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it gets
and I
it
know that a
gets
lot of variants don't really do that, or at least I haven't came across it.
yeah. No, we don't have honorific like speech like that. There is a variant, central variants that still do it, like in Puebla and a couple other, and it's really complicated. Oh, and in Tlaxcala too. But you know, I was talking to this elder from Tlaxcala a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
He's a teacher, and we were all down there talking. And yeah, he's like, yeah, if I talk to one person, I have to talk this way. But if I talk to like a kid, I talk this way. But if I talk to a compadre or comadre, I have to talk this way. And then if I talk
Yeah,
to somebody above me, I have to talk this way. And it was a lot.
I bet. Let me see. Let's see. I hope this is a question. Do you guys follow a count? I try to learn all I can, but I prefer particular because of its solar alignments. I'm assuming they're talking about the correlations um,
Hmm.
of the calendario, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Which one do okay, I'm just gonna say which one do you agree with the most, I should say.
Me personally, and I think there was a lot of variants, but as far as like the Mexica calendar, I go with in my studies, because I went through that era where I was like into the calendar a lot, like trying to figure out calendar stuff.
Decipher it.
Yeah. I go with what they're calling it a Choa count. And so there's basically two main ones, right? There's the main one that everybody sees online everywhere. It's the Arturo Mesa
Mhm.
interpretation, right? Or Masatzin Arturo Mesa. So that was the one everybody kind of like, that's within the culture kind of like learns. But I go with the Joe account. I think it's just the way he explains it and why the other one's wrong. Perfect sense. I agree with him.
What was the name of it again?
They call it the Ochoa account.
Yeah.
Um, I believe it's Ruben Ochoa. I can't remember his first name right now,
Uh-huh.
but the one that sells calendars of it is what's the name of that what um what's the name of that podcast
Hay varios, güey.
with Curly Tlapayoa and Ruben I forgot his name.
Atlantis, or something like that.
Tales from Atlantis.
Yeah, so
Atlantis. Tales from
Atlantis or something.
Atlantis. I like that podcast. But yeah, if you want, check out that calendar. Go to his website.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Me and Curly are not in speaking terms, but it's whatever.
yeah. But from
Um,
just for that thing,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because there's
Well,
people
shout
I
outs
don't
to
talk to
him.
too, but I still respect their research.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
if it's on paper, it's on
Shout out
paper.
to the
That's
Vato.
how
Shout
I
out
look
to the
at it.
Vato Curly. I don't hate him, but I do. At the time, I had a disagreement with that term that he was saying. That some people were trying to pick it up, which was like, what was it
Oh,
again?
chicaneca,
Yeah, chicanteca, or some shit like that. I
chicaneca,
was
chicaneca,
not. I was
chicaneca.
not for it whatsoever. And
Well, it's
yeah,
grammatically incorrect. It's not possible.
well, yeah. I mean, if it's based on the language, like with the rules and everything, then yeah, it's incorrect. And
Yeah,
there's no Tlan city that that
there's no Chicantlan
or so
yet.
shit. You know.
Yeah,
Um. Yeah. Like I was. So in my village, in my pueblo, pues sometimes they have the tendency to say Acayahualtecatl, you know. But I know what I've learned now is my pueblo can't say that because it ends with the suffix of the locative suffix of ko. So we have to if I obey that rule, then it would be Acayahuacat, you know. But
exactly.
yeah, I don't know. People just like I said, lack of education on on the language, and people just find it more easy to just uh break those set of rules, of based on the language.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he said he made it up, which is good. That he's not trying. He didn't try to say, "Oh, it's an ancient," but It's just not grammatically correct. Because it's not
I
like
know
you
where
said. It's
I most definitely know where he came with, just because, like I said, the identity crisis that m- many people are having nowadays, which I don't agree with, but that's because I'm old fashioned. I came from, I guess, one of the last generations that we didn't have all these fucking like Latinx, Chicanx, all these identities, and it's crazy. So I feel Curly was, trying to, I guess, in some aspect, try to get everybody to be like, oh, it's unisex. It's not a gender role identity, which
right.
now is obviously not necessarily gender role, or it's not really spoken in that way.
It's gender
It
neutral.
can be, but its main base is not.
Yeah, it's not. It's gender neutral for sure. And that's interesting for people when they learn that. You know,
Yeah,
the thing is I think we have to understand that a lot of the ideas and concepts and the struggles, social struggles we're going through, or people are going through, you can't take those and then try to apply them into the language because
yeah,
there's it's a whole different way of looking at things.
yeah, yeah. Like what you spoke earlier, like you're kind of westernizing the indigenous language rather to retain its meaning, whatever that may be. So I do
Right.
see that as well, and I like I said, Curly, I think he just made his attempt, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, enough of Curly, and shout out to the homie. Well, actually, he's not my homie, but shout out to the to the vato doing his thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
where do you
But
like? What is your huh?
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask like, oh yeah, we hit the 1 hour mark. I usually ask, would you like to continue, or do you think you got to go, or
Now we go a little longer. I'm not tripping.
okay?
Yeah. Está
So
bien.
what are your thoughts, or what do you think? I don't know if you have put any thought into this. The way that the language is going, and the aspect of like in a general sense, like, do you think it's
As
going
far
in
as
a
like
good
is it
path?
growing? is it growing or
Yeah. Do you think it's growing in the right way, or
I think
or
it's
like
growing and just depends though, like which variant you're talking about. Some of them are really growing and they have a lot of resources and they have a lot of funding and like they even have now they have a um, university course that you can take and
hmm,
down here in just that variant of Nahuatl. So in some places it's growing.
I think you mentioned this. I remember you got invited to a university, right?
Yeah.
How was that experience? Or
Oh, it was good. It was really good. We went down there and it was at the University of Jalisco, Guadalajara, and it was a couple weeks ago actually, like 4 weeks ago. I went there to present, some of my work that I'm doing with the revitalization. I was
yeah,
actually one of the coordinators for the event, but with a lot of other linguist professors from the
yeah.
university. So it was really good. And one of my friends came from Guerrero. He speaks Nahuatl from there, and another guy
I wish.
from Cruz.
I, I've noticed with even in Guerrero, dude. Like, though everybody identifies, oh, this is Guerrero Nahuatl. There's really several variants within Guerrero Nahuatl, man.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Central,
la.
it's crazy. Like I'm like, and they all identify as as Guerrero Nahuatl, and I mean, it's
There's a lot.
cool as dope. But yeah, there's variants within that variant of Guerrero
Yeah, I
Nahuatl.
guess you just identify it with that term because that's like a more known term.
Broad,
That
yeah,
was something that was at the convention. That was something that was very interesting because I always and I say to a lot of people, like people say when I talk about speaking Mexicano, they're like Mexicano what? Speaking what? Because they think Mexicano like the nationality.
yeah.
But three of the three of the speakers, fluent native speakers, one from Tlaxcala, one from Guerrero, one from Veracruz, and they all said that in their communities they don't call it Nahuatl.
Hmm.
And if you talk to an older person and you call it Nahuatl, they get offended, because the general term in most communities they have other term for the language. So yeah,
But that term,
it's
I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that term kind of put on by the Spanish people? Like hablas mexicano, like
yeah, it
historically.
was, it was, and it was kind of like I think about it like this, like today people say, "Oh, I'm indigenous,"
Hmm.
but why? That's a European concept.
Yeah.
That's a European construct that because you're indigenous. Like we're indigenous because there's other people that are not indigenous.
Hmm.
But before they came here, there was no such thing. Everybody was just so
Whatever part they associate, or whatever group they
they call
associated
you
with,
that
or whatever.
enough, and people started adopting that identity, you know, for
Yeah.
different
I
reasons.
mean, I've said this before. I don't. The people before, the indigenous people before. I mean, from that before colonialism, didn't know race, the concept of race, and it was
No,
solely
there's no
based
word.
on like ethnic or language, or where that person associates. That's what it was about, not necessarily like you're fucking
Exactly.
dark, you're light, you're like all these social issues that we have within our community. But
Exactly.
yeah, I've said this before too, and yeah, it's crazy. I think there is a term for African American slave in Nahuatl, but it was obviously it's a new word that was invented by you know post
Yeah.
colonial
They
little
just used the
customs like
term
that.
for black, you
Yeah.
know. They just used the
Uh
term for Celtic or Celtic Tlacat or one of the whatever variant you're speaking, black. the word person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask you, se me fue la onda ahorita. Oh, what are your thoughts? How the indigenous people might have showed gratitude rather than to say Tlazocamati.
Yeah, because that's a European influenced. That's what they call a calc, right? Calco, calc. It's like Clasukamati and all the other ones. Um, but I think from what I've noticed, because if you go to indigenous communities, you'll notice, or even probably if your own family, like older people, they probably don't say thank you very much. You
Nah.
know, they don't say thank you.
Hey,
Like
bro.
my grandpa,
Hey, this is
you don't ever say thank you. You never say thank you.
no. Here's another one too, right here, bro.
So why does there even have to be a an acknowledgement like that?
Yeah.
You know?
Another one for me. And this is my family don't say sorry to one another, regardless if you might have been hurt emotionally. We
Yeah,
don't say sorry. Or we don't apologize. We just show a sense of. It's kind of like you feel it. For instance, I was having a dispute or a conflict with one of my younger cousins that lo crié, güey. You know, I kind of raised him a little bit,
yeah,
and so we started having issues now that he's an adult y todo, and I still see him as my little pinchy, you know, the little changuito that was bugging me to kick it.
yeah,
Um, he never, and I never expected an apology from him in words. It for me, it was enough for him to just show up to my house and attempted to talk to me. That for me was like a form of like you are being apologetic, but without voicing it. And that's like a custom within my family. And I don't know if it's indigenous or what the or you know, but it is a custom I don't even know if I should call it a custom. It's something within my family that
yeah,
occurs.
yeah. I think that kind of goes same thing with the thank yous and the it's like a cultural thing that I
Yeah, and
noticed too.
another one too that I've noticed is when somebody gives you something, um, you give something back. Like I don't know if it's European gesture or whatnot, but I know like por ejemplo, um, since alguien trae like, oh, yo traigo carne or whatever,
Yeah,
and you're like, pues aquí estoy, I don't know, I don't know how to really explain it, but there's definitely like a little barter thing, kind or gifting
yeah,
manner going on. Like it's at least
yeah,
that's another custom within my family.
yeah. Well, it's not a European custom because they just took.
Yeah, so that's something that occurs in my family.
No,
And
but that's European. That's indigenous because that goes back to the root. Even though you might not speak the language no more, but that goes back to the root. Tradition is the act of giving to receive, reciprocity. I really say that. So
mhm,
if you look at the old Nahuatl text where they're talking about the practices, customs, they have a word called tlamasewalisli, right? Which
uh-huh,
means there's really no translation in English. They try to say like it means the act of deserving or meriting something, but that action is based upon your action of giving. Because in order to receive, you have to give, and then if somebody gives you, you have to back and forth. It's a non-ending cycle,
yeah.
you know. So I think that yeah, I agree. I know that's and that's in a lot of indigenous traditions. They're like that.
It's probably why, like, I'm not all, like, historically informed, but if I'm not mistaken, I think, Cuauhtemoc gifted, things to the arriving Spanish people. Um, do you think that was like a natural custom? Do you think it was a custom for indigenous people to give things to, I guess, somebody that had arrived from afar, or like somebody new that
Yeah,
is appearing into your
any
community?
visitor, any visitor, if you go to like maybe not in the cities, but if you go to like place in the rancho, you're like an honored guest.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
There you go.
that's how it is. That's just part of being human. You
Hmm.
know, from a indigenous perspective. You
Yeah.
know,
So I got a question for you that I've also seen on social media, or yeah, within social media. I sometimes see people saying, "Oh, the unaliving things wasn't true." I wish I could say the word because everybody's all sensitive nowadays. What do you do you
why do
believe
they
that
say
that
that word
occurred?
on a living?
Huh?
When did that word come about?
Fuck, I don't know,
On a
bro.
long. I
Uh,
remember I first heard it. What? Why don't they just say murdered or killed?
yeah, I, but I'm gonna just say it. I'm assuming all my audiences are of adult age. Do you think sacrifices that we know it as now in a westernized mindset? Do you think that occurred uh, pre-Hispanic time? You think it's fabricated, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it occurred. I think it occurred. Like why? Well, you know, they still do animal sacrifices. Certain communities, they still, turkeys and chickens and stuff like that in certain
Yeah, yeah.
communities. So what would be a better sacrifice, right? Probably be a human. If you
Hmm.
look at it like more or less just a life, or equal, or one's more greater, you know, I would say yeah, because every culture has pretty much practiced that. But there's a lot of evidence that they did, but I don't know. I feel like why? What's so big deal about that?
About
Is people are
that,
all
whether they did it or not.
yeah, like that they did it. Okay, because we're looking at it from a European perspective that tells us this is right. Like our ancestors used to eat dogs, right?
Yeah,
Like you if you tell somebody that now, then they're like totally 100% against it because
yeah,
we've been westernized in our outlook on what it means to have a dog is no longer a food; it's a pet,
yeah.
you know, which can become almost like a human, to some people. So it's just a different perspective. I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong.
Yeah,
Obviously, we evolve.
yeah. We changed. Well,
We change.
we got colonized, or we got corrupted again by foreign influences.
Sometimes it's
Um,
for the good, sometimes it's for the bad.
yeah,
I guess for the one being sacrificed, I guess it would be for the good.
yeah, hell yeah. One of the nutty stories that I've came across is the grooming of young men to do like a sepulchre thing. I guess for an example, not exactly like the sepulchre, but something similar of you're doing it, doing the act yourself of sacrificing or suicide or however you want to call it. I was familiar that what with this story is that they would groom young men to pretty much play a flute go as they go up the temple. Do you know that being factual, if you have came across that story or whatnot? And oh yeah, and this grooming is for Tezcatlipoca.
Well, it's the stories there in the Florida codexes. I believe that's where it's at, amongst others. So it's
Mhm.
there, you know. I don't. It probably doesn't wouldn't surprise me because you see it in other cultures. You know,
Yeah,
there
like
are other
I
cultures
think in
like they would like when they died, the guy died, the wives commit suicide
like the
or they kill
question,
him.
the
You
like
know,
the that mummy that they found on the mountains of I think somewhere in definitely in South America, but I don't know what part. I don't know if it was in Chile or Peru or whatever. They had
oh
found
yeah,
like a mummy of a young indigenous woman. Uh, I'm assuming in her teenage or just about getting into her teenage years. Um, she was offered to whatever indigenous custom they had, but yeah, that obviously tells me that youth was also not I guess protected the way that it is now. I guess from other people.
yeah. There's a totally different mind frame, but that's not. They
Mhm.
didn't just find one mummy girl. They found a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. And that was just an example.
Yeah. So that's like it tells us something. So I think people are they don't want to accept some certain facts about because they're judging them from a different perspective.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying it's just that's what happened.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I'm on neutral. I can't. I feel. I'm like not gonna be judgmental. Like I tried. If anything, I tried to comprehend into why they were doing something like that, and rather than to condemn them to be bad people.
Well, it's crazy. I probably shouldn't say this, but it's crazy that a lot of the people that have these, you know, like these belief systems, like, oh my God, they're sacrificing people and this and that. They come from this religious backgrounds where they believe a person was sacrificed for them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And in these religions, it's a whole bunch of sacrifice.
Yeah.
So it just
Well,
seems kind
like
of
human sacrifices, it seems like it was like a global thing. It wasn't just like a
right.
Mesoamerica, like um,
Yeah.
everybody definitely
I
had
think the
their
Spaniards
own.
kind of blew it up. Probably they probably blew it up,
Yeah,
to justify
because I think it's like in the
their
medieval times, they had some crazy tortures, like tactics of how to, I guess, murder another human being. Um, yeah, it's pretty intense, and I think a lot of times people forget that, and they just try to all the indigenous people they're just bad or they had a bad way of thinking, um, and for whatever
yeah,
meaningful purpose it was to them, like how can we be judgmental about it?
yeah, exactly.
Let's see if we have
Yeah,
one more question before we end this. I guess this is my question. I guess. Kiahuitl, what is the reason behind your long hair, men or women? Why don't you cut it? Is it against your people? I'm gonna be honest. The hairstyle that I have is not a pre-colonial custom. It was a different type of hairstyle, but I began to grow my hair as I guess a way to be showing to out to the world of my resistance and embracing my indigenous heritage. Because in a Western or Euro centric mindset, we believe that men should always have short hair, and not, and it's kind of like frowned upon for men to have long hair. So that it's more of a personal thing for me. It's just like I said, it's to embrace and resist to that whole ideology that men should have short hair. What about you, Guautzin?
same thing, same reasons, exactly the same. Just in just resistance. When I was like 15, or was in a when I was 16, I was in a sweat lodge, and there was a one of the elders from up that way, and he was saying, you know, he told all of us young guys in there, like, you guys should grow your hair. Don't cut your hair because it's an act of resistance because of what
Yeah.
happened on these things. And from that day, I just always like kind of stuck with me, like just
How long have
that's what you
you
should
had your hair for the length that you have it? I guess.
do. Well, I
Oh, you
started
lost
growing it
track.
at that time. Huh?
Is that you lost you lost track? Because I
Yeah,
kind of did already. Though.
yeah, yeah. It's been a long time. It's been a long
Yeah.
time. It's been, I don't
Well,
know,
Goatsin,
25
I
years or
think we're
something.
gonna end it now. We're gonna end it now.
Yes,
It
sir.
was an honor to have you here, and I hope that we get to do this again. And hopefully, we have better questions from the audience. Um, I think we touched some topics that people wanted to know. Hopefully, um, yeah, it was a pleasure, Goatsin. Like I said, I want to thank you for assisting me in my studies and helping me a whole lot. Um, I know that you have your own personal studies, your own views, and everything,
Mhm.
and I can respect that. I respect that passion of yours. Obviously, you've been doing this a whole lot longer than I have, and pues I te agradezco. I thank you for helping me out. Um, in fact, whenever I see you correct me, I'm like this mother flower, like, because I know that shit that you tell me is like fuck. I did forget about that. Like,
Yeah,
and I know that you're correct, and I'm like, "Well, pues ya valió madre, yeah, like the video's already up, like, but
yeah,
I don't get offended when you do it. I do get offended when other now what speakers do it to me.
yeah,
Um, I think because when you obviously came to me privately, like, hey, yo, I kind of vaguely remember the message that you sent me.
yeah,
And like that, but I mean, to me, I was like, damn, this was obviously old school. To like pull me to the side type shit rather to be like, yo.
yeah.
So that's one another reason why I respect you. And yeah, man. Is there any words? Oh yeah, I forgot somebody right here. I'm not getting any more students right now for a while, but I believe Cuauhtli. How can they contact you for people to join your study group or your class?
Oh, I'm actually gonna open up tomorrow. I'm gonna open up the registration for um for the last classes for November 12th to December 12th. So just basically 30, and it's gonna be twice a week for like an hour, hour and a half, and it's gonna be beginner level Jalisco Nahuatl, which is also spoken in Colima. If you have roots there, it's the same variant. And yeah, they can just everything that says Jalisco Nahuatl. That's basically my handles on Instagram and
Let me
TikTok
see
and
if I
all
can
those.
put this as a banner.
But we're gonna start the enrollment tomorrow, and this is only gonna be 10 spots available. But I would just like to
I hope I
say
spelled
before
it
we
right.
end that anybody that's learning the language, just keep like what you're doing, just keep a positive attitude, and you know, everybody makes mistakes. The thing is, if you're willing to correct it and keep trying, and if you're one of those people that knows a lot, think about the way that you're correcting other people. You know, the approach you take,
All right.
because
So
you know,
uh,
yeah,
I just want to quickly say that is his handle on all social medias, or is it just an Instagram?
yeah. Except for my name is like on Facebook or my other
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Jalisco now what? As displayed on the screen right here. Jalisco.nahuatl is
Hmm.
his primary handle. Reach out to him to join his group. Um, yeah, I was saying, I love the conversation that we had. Uh, I feel that you do need a lot more exposure because I know you are a fucking knowledgeable individual. Like crazy. And like I said, I respect that again.
Yeah,
And
well,
yeah,
thank you for inviting me.
yeah. If we could do this again whenever you like, you can let me know, or I'm always down, bro.
Okay. All right.
All right,
All
yo.
right.
So you guys have a good night. I hope you enjoyed the show. Y nos los vemos.